On this episode of Public Scrutiny, we'll be taking a look at a heated interview between Nick Ferrari and an Extinction Rebellion spokesperson.
So let's hear someone who actually is with Extinction Rebellion. Paul Stevens, who served as a police officer with the Met for more than 3 decades. You're a member of the Extinction Rebellion Police Liaison Team. You're a former detective sergeant in the Met.
A former detective sergeant in the Met now finds himself a political activist embedded in a fairly high-ish profile activist group. I hope that's some sort of undercover work. It must take quite a while to get promoted to the rank of detective sergeant. It takes a certain kind of mind to be a copper and a certain kind of mind to be an activist. Activists and coppers are usually on opposing sides. It would be an interesting transition to go from one to the other.
And I know this much, you're in the studio. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Nick.
What do Extinction Rebellion want?
Well, we want 3 demands. We want the government to tell the truth. So the climate emergency is facing us, and often they are not telling the truth. They are greenwashing the information that's coming out.
What do you mean by greenwashing? Explain that to my listeners.
It's being
It's obviously whitewashing.
For example, if you look at the Prime Minister's latest speech in the Houses of Parliament, he said that he was very proud of the 40% reduction in carbon that the UK had put out. That because we're an island, that doesn't include aviation, that doesn't include shipping, and it doesn't include all the products that we now import that are made in China, using coal to produce them.
We have pretty much zero influence over the likes of India and China, and the truth is the West could deindustrialise itself in the name of saving the planet, and those companies would simply move to a place where they could make their money. So globally, pollution would stay the same or get worse as other nations improve their standard of living. Meanwhile, you want our standard of living to decline.
So the actual figure is about 10% since the 1990. And the UN says in order for us to keep, for a 50-50 chance of keeping to 1.5 degrees, we need to reduce by 8% per year. And this is 10% over 30 years. So it's not good enough, and he's not being clear about that. And I think he should go to the people and say, this is the problem. It is a major problem. It threatens our lives.
That's your opinion. I believe that weather's manipulated. Jet streams are microwaved, which has an effect on all subsequent weather patterns which emanate from that stream. And so-called contrails, which should evaporate after a short time, stay in the air, spread out and turn clear skies cloudy. Maybe instead of looking at the words on your paper, you should look up to the sky once in a while. You, a former detective sergeant in the Met, have bought right into the manipulation. It's not like there aren't patents out regarding geoengineering systems or reams of information online, yet here you are relaying the exact ideology which has been used to change the world on behalf of the rich and powerful. They already have the wealth, now they want to solidify their position by lowering the standards of life for everybody else in order to create an insurmountable gap between us and them, with people like you acting as their mouthpiece. You absolute fool.
Our food, our water, and we need to do something about it. I'm very proud to be British, and in the war we turned pram factories into Spitfire factories. We need that kind of spirit. We need to lead the world. And I think Boris has got a chance. He did it with the Olympics. He should do this with COP26. He should get us together and really lead the world in making the changes necessary.
And if the United Kingdom was to achieve that, what about other countries? I think countries such as India and China, they're not necessarily going to follow in the same way.
Obviously, but you can't tell someone to take their feet off the seat in a train if you've got your feet on the seat.
If you truly believe that China would deindustrialise itself because we did, or India would sacrifice a better standard of living because another country somewhere else in the world decided to stand on virtue, then you have no clue at all about geopolitics, and you really shouldn't be making any demands of a government that actually has to function and hold our place in the world. If you want to sell all your stuff and live off-grid, fine. But as soon as you demand that others do the same, there's a problem. Yours is a political movement, your beliefs and ideology, not even your own. And you are trying to impose your politics on everyone else. You have zero authority and no rights to do so.
You have to take the lead. You have to give an example. So, and we produce most of the carbon in the atmosphere today.
No, we don't. The UK produces about 1% of the world's total CO2 output. The top 5 producers are China, the USA, India, Russia and Japan. They account for about 45% of the world's total, and this shows the idiocy of your position. You would wish us to deindustrialise ourselves, even though it would make hardly any difference to global CO2 emissions.
And we taught other countries how to do it with steam and...
But we're not on the same level as China, are we?
I think you'll find that you personally produce much, much more carbon than the average Chinaman.
You're comparing an individual against an average. I bet somebody in Nick's position in China probably produces a relatively similar amount of CO2. Plus, the standard of living's better in the UK than in China, so CO2 averages would differ anyway.
So per capita, it's like 3, 4, 5 times.
But there's
the amount.
1.7 billion of those.
Of course, and they are making
67 million of 70 million of
They
us.
are making changes, and when they start to make changes, because of their system of government, they're going to change very quickly, I hope.
When they start to make changes, that should be if and when they start to make changes. And because of their system of government, they're going to change very quickly. I assume, I hope. Assumptions and hope are not a sound footing for making statements about China. Have they said anything at all to suggest that they will make changes? Because if they haven't, you have no basis for that answer, which was based on your own assumptions and hope.
What are the plans for May?
We're going to have rebellion on May the 23rd. Our people are trying very hard to think of creative ways to bring the message to the media that doesn't create disruption. I'm not for disruption. We've tried every avenue up to now.
Yeah, every avenue except the primary one, which is running for office and gaining a mandate from the people. But then I think that there's no way that people would vote to have their nation decimated by lunatics like you. And rather than be rejected at the ballot box, you decided to try other means to impose your ideology on everyone.
Unfortunately, the disruption we have created worked. I mean, I'm sitting here. If I'd rang up LBC a year ago and said there is a massive crisis...
I don't think you can count that argument any longer, for goodness sake.
Why?
David Attenborough was alongside Boris Johnson at this
Yep.
conference yesterday.
Yep.
Are you honestly telling me you think people out there are not aware of the issues of climate change?
Some of us remember when they called it global warming, and then when they realised the Earth wasn't warming, they switched it to climate change. It's very hard to argue against it, given that the climate's always changing. Either way, we've had the idea drummed into us for about 30 years now, so I doubt there are many people who are unaware of the concept.
Some people are not. Some people come up to us in the street while
Well, I
we're
don't know
sitting
what
in the
more you
road
can
and they
do.
say, why are you doing this? Who's Extinction Rebellion? Many people say that.
So you want to be by peaceful means this May, though?
It's always, well...
Well,
what-
it's not, is it?
It's
Sometimes
non-violent.
it's just
We are
stopping people trying to get to work.
That's absolutely committed to non-violent.
But you're happy to cause as much aggravation as you can, happy to disrupt people as they go about their lives, happy to cause anger in people because of your actions, but that's okay, I suppose, because you yourselves are non-violent. Well, how about this? You're attacking people with disruption to their lives in order to get the government to listen. Everyday folk are the victims of your negotiating strategy, even though your issue is with our administration. You're harming us in order to get somebody else to listen. There's no justification for that. You wouldn't listen, so I attacked a third party.
No, it also can trip into people not being able to get to work on public transport, such as Canning Town.
Absolutely, yeah. I didn't agree with that action. I didn't
Right.
agree with that
So
action.
what
But
can be
the
done to
people who-
ensure?
The people who did it were extremely... they care extremely about the people of London and the effects
So
of
that
climate change that are
justifies
coming.
it?
Well, you have to look at the context. You act in a way proportionate to the emergency.
Oh, no, you don't. You say that we risk extinction. Emergencies don't get much better, so that would give you almost free licence to do whatever you wanted. The end justifies the means. What if in a year's time nothing's changed? Do you escalate? Of course you do, because of the emergency that you say we face.
Which doesn't mean becoming violent. We are absolutely committed to non-violence because I think that would backfire hugely.
Right, but you are committed to disruption.
No, if it's a tactic that works, then we are committed to mass
So
disobedience.
will you seek to take control of bridges again this May?
The tactics haven't been ironed out yet.
Well, would you support it?
I would liaise with the police and see what they had to say about it, and hopefully this time they would communicate with us and we can come to some kind of
So you would support it
agreement.
if your colleagues wanted it?
If it's well, a lot of it depends on what the government does, because if the government continue in investing in fossil fuels, which is going to kill us, then we still need to raise the alarm.
What gives you or your colleagues the right to stop someone going to work?
They have no right to prevent people from going about their lawful business. In fact, it's a criminal offence to do so. This guy was a detective sergeant. He would know that.
Well, what does a construction worker, why does a construction worker
You said it was a construction worker.
who needs to finish his roadworks, why does he have the right to stop you going to work?
Well, presumably there's a problem with the road which requires works to fix it. Official bodies are charged with the responsibility of maintaining our roads, and so on occasion roadworks will impede our ability to get to work. But the intention is to fix the road, not to stop people from using it in order to impose a political view on them or to deliberately cause disruption to their lives. This man was a detective sergeant in the Met, it beggars belief.
When he blocks a road to work
Because
on
the road's dangerous and they need to fill the hole in.
the road's dangerous.
So it's got a hole in it.
This crisis is the most dangerous risk that we are facing.
Like I say, I disagree with your view. But then does this give you the right to mess with my life, to prevent me from getting to work or to hospital in an emergency? No, it doesn't.
Defies you. People lost their jobs last time. Courier companies let men, I happen to know they're all men go. People lost their jobs. You justify that?
We were giving out flyers to couriers when they met us, and we gave them flyers. We said, please give that to
I don't care if you're
your
giving out
boss.
Girl Guide packs.
We are
People
really
lost
sorry.
their jobs.
Yeah, sorry that the parcel didn't get there when you needed it, or that the patient died on the way to the hospital, but it's okay, I've got a note from Extinction Rebellion. They are a bunch of ideologically motivated nobodies. That note would have been thrown in the bin.
I joined the police in 1983. My job has been assessing risk. So when intelligence comes in, I have to work out what is the chance that this is true. Okay? And then I have to work out what are the consequences if it is true. Is it going to be a murder? Is somebody going to die? Is there going to be a rape?
What's this to do with someone losing his job or their job? What's it to do with that?
Because it's the context.
So it's okay.
People get disrupted all the time.
Yeah, disruptions occur during normal daily running, accidents, mechanical failures, etc. But the principle is to keep everything running smoothly. But you are going out with the intention to disrupt people's lives. It's not a question of context, in my opinion. It's a matter of intent, and your intent is unlawful, Mr. Ex-Detective Sergeant.
And they get disrupted by
courier
public
drivers
transport.
out of work coming up to Christmas, but that's fine, is it for you? You have some greater authority to put people out of work.
We are looking at our
You were a
food
gentleman called Dan
disappearing.
Biddle.
Our potato crop has already been hit.
The question was whether you have some greater authority than those you put out of work. The answer is no, you do not. You know this, which is why you move straight into justification, which, by the way, is an assertion of your political beliefs, which I do not accept.
Mr. Biddle lost a number of limbs in the July bombing here.
Yeah.
He was due to attend a reception at the House of Lords where he was going to be said his life was going to be celebrated as a prominent disability rights campaigner. He couldn't get there because of your colleagues. He'll never have that opportunity again in his life. That's okay, is it?
If he had presented himself, if he'd come and spoken to us,
Why
we
should
would
he
have
have
ensured.
to? What
that
are
he
you
would
now?
have
Your
got
own
through.
authority? You're now like the police?
We have a right to be
You
there.
have to present
We
yourself.
have a right to be
you
there
have to
because we
present
care.
yourself to be
Has this guy been brainwashed? Laws are an objective standard which you would break because of your subjective political beliefs. Caring about something might be mitigation, but it does not give you the right to break the law.
allowed to go across the highway.
If
Is
there
that what
was
you're
any
saying?
other
So you
choice,
take control now. So
if
you're
there
your
was
own
any
authority.
other choice, then we would have used the other methods.
What do you mean if there's any other choice?
Greenpeace have been doing it for years and they haven't got the same exposure as us. If the media was more sensitive to minority groups and important
Talk
issues...
to me about the success of the LGBT lobby. How did they achieve it?
I have no
Tell me how
knowledge
many
of that.
bridges
I'm
they
not an
closed.
expert in the LGBT
Tell me how
lobby.
many people lost their jobs as a result of their work.
I have no idea
I'll
about
answer
that.
it for you. They
Go
haven't
on.
closed a single bridge and no one's lost their job. They did it by engaging with the community, not obstructing the community.
That's the money shot right there. Nice one, Nick. Exactly that. Extinction Rebellion chose to disrupt those that they should have been seeking the support of. Most other activist groups have taken the long, hard road to get where they are, but Extinction Rebellion see their cause as being the ultimate cause. This, for some reason, means that they don't have to follow the same rules as everybody else, even though they will alienate themselves from the public in the process.
Again, I put it to you, what gives you the right to stop a disabled person getting to an award ceremony? What gives you the right to put 4 people out of work? Please don't say the climate's dying and we won't know, no one will have a job and everyone will be disabled. You're not going to give me that, are you?
Well, what's wrong with that? That is true.
It looks like he's been radicalised. A former detective sergeant in the Met is almost entirely consumed by his political beliefs.
Do you agree in the climate emergency?
So a bloke didn't have money on the table at Christmas, and that's all right in your eyes?
No, it's not all right. And this government should do more about social services.
He puts a bloke out of work and then shifts the onus onto social services. No, it was due to your actions that the guy had no money. Social services would have had to help him because of what you did. Keep smiling, though.
That's not all right, definitely. But do you agree with that there is a climate emergency that needs tackling as an emergency right now? Do you agree about that?
Yes, of course, that's absolutely given.
So do you, Nick, think that the government is actually doing their job properly? That they are addressing it fast enough?
Firstly, if anyone has a mandate to address it, it would be the government. Secondly, the UK government does not run the world. We can't make other nations do what we want them to do, in this regard at least. So it is possible that the government could be working as fast as it can. But it probably wouldn't be fast enough for you, which means that you would continue to cause disruption for everybody until China deindustrialises. It's not going to happen. China and India want an increase to their quality of life. Do you think that our government could make them stick with what they've had up till now, or do you want them to go backwards as well?
Well, they seem to have spent enough time yesterday at that conference. Yes, I do.
Well, they spent a morning.
Well, yeah, but the Prime Minister was there, and goodness me, we're having a whole committee set up. Yes, they are doing a lot. What is the
So you think they're doing enough?
I don't know enough, but they're certainly doing a lot.
So while the main oil companies are investing $115 billion in extracting more oil and gas, which is going to poison us in the future, and our food supply, you think the government are doing enough?
Well, how on earth do you think this research is going to be done unless you have companies such as that who conduct research?
They have to switch to green energy. They have to switch to green energy.
Oh, so now he wants to tell the oil companies what to do. You lot are going to have to give up your oil and gas monopoly and move into areas where others can compete against you. Again, never going to happen. And if he seriously believes that it will, he's deluded. It seems that Extinction Rebellion, a group of nothingness, actually believe they can make ludicrous demands and that they're going to continue to punish everybody until they get what they want and at a speed which satisfies them.
As soon as possible.
Well, perhaps they are. What's the ultimate goal of Extinction Rebellion?
The ultimate goal is to get the government to tell the truth.
What's funny?
Because we've told you so many times. We have the Three Demands Act. We've put a bill before Parliament. You asked me a question, yeah?
No.
Tell the truth, act now, and beyond politics.
Okay.
That was a shabby attempt at answering the most basic of questions. It looks like he was trying to style his way out until he could find the answer on his paperwork.
So we want citizens' assemblies to dictate what happens in the community.
I don't know how familiar you are with a gentleman called Simon Bramwell.
I've never met him. I know what you're referring to.
He's one of the founders. If you'd like to put the headphones on, we can play you a clip of him. He was addressing a meeting some time ago. Just to remind my listeners.
What meeting was he addressing?
Simon Bramwell was one of the founders of Extinction Rebellion. He was addressing a splinter or another group, and this is what he had to say.
It is part of our duty, in my opinion, that we've also got to not only take down civilization, but shepherd ourselves and the incoming generations back into a state of wilding, as it were, into like a feral consciousness.
It's amazing how many left-wing activist groups are intent on destroying the system. But note, it's not just about deindustrialisation. He wants us to exhibit a wild, feral consciousness. He actually wants to destroy our civilization, bless him.
OK, so he was addressing, if it's important to you, a deep green meeting in December, so the month before last. Take down civilization. This is the reality of it, isn't it, of what this organisation is about?
Deep Green are not Extinction Rebellion.
It's an offshoot of.
They include violent action. We are definitely committed to non-violent action. I have never met him. Could I just come back to you on that recording? He's not with us now, I believe. I've never met him. I've been in since April. I've never met him. And I've never met anybody to express that kind of view.
He's still the co-founder.
Lots of people started this, and for whatever... But I don't really care, because I have been in it.
You don't care that he wants to bring down civilization?
I don't care, because we have a massive threat facing us.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who says what or what their intentions are, because you have a trump card that can be used to justify nearly anything.
Right.
That's what I care about. And the people...
So if there's no civilization, what are we going to do about hospitals?
No, I'd like to read you something that the judge said about Extinction Rebellion. Noble.
Which judge?
Judge Noble.
Right.
He said,
when? I mean, what did you stop it? What's the context?
This was 3 weeks ago in his last trial of Extinction Rebellion, because they only do a certain amount of months. He did scores of Extinction Rebellion people in court. He said, I was fully expecting to see the usual crowd of anarchists and communists and all the dreadful things the Daily Mail say you are. I have to say I've been totally overwhelmed by all the defendants. It is such a pleasure to deal with people so different from all the people I deal with in my regular life. Thank you for your courtesy, your honesty and your integrity. You have to succeed.
Oh, that judge sounds impartial to me. How many cases did you say he'd presided over? If you have a judge that favours your political position in that way, then as far as I'm concerned, you're not being held properly accountable for the crimes you committed.
Right.
That is what a judge is saying about us.
So suddenly all changes on the word of one judge. One judge.
Well,
I play you the co-founder.
You play me recording of somebody I've never met.
Well, it doesn't matter whether you've met him or not.
And definitely is expressing views
Mr.
that I've
Stevens.
never heard within Extinction
He's the
Rebellion.
co-founder.
I work with doctors. I work with doctors.
If that was the chairman of the Rolls, I might listen.
I work with doctors, A&E doctors.
Okay.
So
when there's no civilization, what will we do with it? We won't have hospitals. We'll all be living in caves again.
That's why I'm out trying to do something about it, to avert this crisis.
That's where Mr. Bratmore wants to take us back to. Take down civilization.
Why are you talking about a man I've never met?
Because he's the co-founder of the organisation that you're currently here speaking on behalf of. He was outlining the intentions of the organisation that you're part of and its aims and goals. That's why.
I can't give you information about him.
So you can only ever talk about people you meet?
I can only talk about my experience.
Right. So
I don't know this man, and he's not part of Extinction Rebellion. And there he's talking to a group which advocates violence.
He was part of Extinction
Rebellion. So I want nothing to do with him if he has those views.
£42 million it cost the police lastly. Yes. £42 million.
Yes.
Money that I'm sure you think could be spent better with your former colleagues and the work they did in Streatham on the weekend. Yes. Again, can you justify that?
I don't think the police should have used that many police. We were overwhelmed with police all the time. We needed a few police liaison officers to liaise with us.
How do you stop your colleagues gluing themselves to the doors of offices and things like that unless you have some coppers about?
What do you think will happen if
why don't you answer
they're
a question?
Stuck to the door?
Why? So it's okay to stick themselves. I see. So people not being able to get in and out of work is okay. So now we've got to get even more people who can't go to work.
Well,
is
usually
that right?
there's back entrances they can go through.
Why should someone have to go through the back door to go to work?
Because there is a massive crisis
this justifies
facing
everything
the world,
in your book, doesn't it?
Exactly. You can use it to get you out of answering questions, you can use it to justify disrupting people's lives, and of course you can signal your own virtues with it, day after day after day.
Well, it should, shouldn't it? Don't you think? Don't you think it should?
No, what, breaking the law?
Don't you think,
massive No, I don't know. I've just answered you.
Existential crisis
do you think it justifies breaking the law?
Justifies non-violent action.
Do you think it justifies breaking the law?
It justifies non-violent action.
No,
what individuals do...
Does it justify breaking the law?
What's the most serious thing?
Why do you always answer a question with a question? Does it justify breaking the law?
In certain circumstances.
This guy is as bent as a £4 note. He admits that his ideology justifies him breaking the law in certain circumstances. And as we've already heard him say, the climate is the biggest crisis we face. So it looks like we're already in the circumstances that he says justifies law breaking then. He's a former policeman. It beggars belief.
Really? So you would, and you're the police liaison officer.
And the law.
So I'm sat opposite you, and I'm on the Met side, and I know you're a guy who advocates breaking the law.
That is the dilemma we put to the police, because we believe in necessity. Necessity is an excuse in the law.
There is no necessity to disrupt innocent people's lives in order to get the government to do what you want when the mechanism exists for you to stand as a parliamentarian yourself. You have options, but you will not use them because if you did, you would be rejected by the people for your insane ideological position. There is no necessity if you have legal means at your disposal.
And we believe we are saving lives by breaking the lowest laws that there are, like Section 14, for example, sitting in the road, criminal damage under £5,000.
Why do you oppose Section 14? Just to remind my listeners, this would, for the purpose of debate, designate Trafalgar Square as an area for protest, and you can have your rallies and your speeches quite rightly, but the roads around Trafalgar Square you are not allowed to intervene so that everyone can keep moving. Why would you oppose that?
Easy, because everybody would ignore them and just go about their daily business. It would render Extinction Rebellion absolutely impotent.
What do you mean? Why do I oppose it?
Would you support that? Are you in agreement with the use of Section 14?
I agree that the Section 14 is there and they should use it, yeah.
So you would be happy to do it? So if they were
I'd be happy to do it?
You would be happy to agree with Section 14 for Hyde Park?
It depends on the circumstances.
Well, what would be against it?
It depends on the circumstances. It depends how many people we've come with. If we've got 40,000 people coming to London, Hyde Park would not be big enough.
Methinks you're overestimating the levels of support you have.
Right, OK, so we move you to Twickenham. You'd be satisfied then?
It depends on the circumstances. I can't answer a hypothetical in that.
But you would be supportive of not blocking the roads?
The important thing is when we go to court, we are arguing a legal issue, a necessity. We are saying it's necessary
human rights as well.
For us to do it, and human rights, but it's necessary for us to do it because people are dying if we don't do it.
But the human rights of people who want to go to work are somehow trumped by the human rights of
Absolutely,
your
but if they don't go to work, people don't die.
If they don't go to work, people don't die. If they don't go to work, they starve, they lose their homes, they can't feed their kids, they can't afford the true necessities of life. You, sir, are an absolute plank.
So your people have to take over Waterloo Bridge or people will die?
I'm glad you're getting it, finally, Nick. I'm glad you're getting it.
Is that what you're saying? People are going to die?
Unfortunately, we've tried every single avenue.
You're already heard of. Everybody knows about you.
Now, but it's only started in...
But if it's you agree they've heard now, we don't need you back in May.
I joined in April. This is a very young organisation, and the government still is not doing enough. They're taking half a step forwards by bringing the
conference yesterday.
Yeah. You know, the petrol and diesel cars we phased out 5 years earlier. That's brilliant, but that's half a step forwards, 5 steps backwards. So we need to be honest with the public.
How is that 5 steps backwards? They brought it forward
because they have all those other policies, investing in fossil fuels.
The truth
for
is
example.
they could never do enough for you and you or your colleagues.
That's not true. They could take up the 3 demands bill that we're asking for.
Extinction Rebellion are seeking to get further and further into politics. They want power for themselves with citizens' assemblies, but they are a left-wing political activist group, so any citizens' assembly would most likely end up being controlled or dominated by the left. It's a power grab. I think for those that wanted to run the entire world, a system had to be built in order to transfer power from the people to them. So they had to create supranational structures, the EU being one. NAFTA in America would have been another one. Note its beginnings. It started out life as a trading arrangement, just like the EU. But even then you couldn't transfer power directly to those structures. They have to exist in parallel to the nation state. Sure, give them the power to regulate everything, then all you have to do is remove power from the national government. I believe that that's what these citizens' assemblies are designed to do. But you have to prepare quite a long way in advance to get to that point, which to be truthful they have. But, in a relatively short span of time, Trump got elected and Britain left the EU. This shifted the balance of power from them back to us. Had that not happened, I'm sure that Hillary, the EU and the puppet national governments would have been very sympathetic about the so-called climate crisis, given how much they've been pushing it for the last 3 decades. But the mechanisms they put in place to remove power from government are still there, carrying on as per the original plan. These groups are coordinated. Simultaneous activity all over the Western world, and I'm not buying it for a second. And with that, I'll end this video here. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a like as it really helps, and if you want to see more, you can subscribe. Till the next one, I'll catch you later.